All right. Well, here we are. It's week 4, our last live session together. I hope you find this course interesting and beneficial. What I'm going to do tonight is talk a little bit about our final discussion and our final assignment. Let me start off by talking a little bit about the discussion for this week. Just so that you know, I have already put in something for my discussion which talks a little bit about font usage and the legalities of it and the limitations of it. Not exactly what the topic calls for, but as the instructor, I'm trying to add some information that you will find helpful. So there's my discussion, and obviously up here it talks about font usage and copyrights, the learning objective, compare the quality and usability of free novelty fonts versus classic paid fonts. Now, obviously, we are not going to be able to use any paid fonts because we don't have any way to do that, although you could conceivably, since you have an Adobe license on your computer, you could go into the Adobe type and you could pick some type. But I went to a site that I know of, and believe me when I tell you, there are many, 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 many of these sites. I just grabbed one, and what I will do is before the end of the night, I will put the link to this site in an announcement for you so that you guys can go in and check it out and see if there's anything you want to download and use, because that's part of this discussion. So anyway, discuss general guidelines as they apply to copyright restrictions in font use. And to be honest with you, that's kind of where my topic led me in this week's discussion. When you go in there, I was talking generally about some of the guidelines and copyright restrictions, and something that you'll find when you actually export your project in Adobe InDesign. And of course, this talks also about career relevancy. I'm not going to spend the time to read that. I'll let you do that. And of course, you have the background. Start searching for fonts online. You'll get thousands of results. That's the same. That's what I was saying, and that's very true. And I'm not going to go through all this. I'll let you guys do all this because I got a lot to do tonight. Font copyright licensing and usage rights. And again, that's kind of what I talked a little bit about in my discussion for the week. And again, you should really read through this whole thing like I did. But let's get to the prompt, because that kind of is like the meat and potatoes of what we're doing here. So for this week's discussion, start with picturing the following scenario. You've been commissioned to create a poster for the music festival fundraiser in a community garden. Your client has purchased a font family, ITC Novaris, which is a serif font that they use on all their branded material. But they're open for you to use an additional, more unique or decorative font that will work well with the font provided. Now, keep in mind, the font that you pick should be appropriate not only for the Novaris font that they've provided, but for the musical festival fundraiser in a community garden. Think about that as well. You don't just think about, is this going to work with Novaris? It's also the context of where it's going to be used. That's a very important thing for you to consider, okay? We're going to look at the client's font, Novaris. There's a link to it right there. When I clicked on that link, this is what it brought me to. And ITC Novaris, here is the Novaris family. So you can see what it looks like. I mean, it isn't far afield from Times New Roman. It is different. It isn't exactly Times New Roman, but it's a classic, essentially a fairly classic serif font. Comes in a number of weights. There's the book italic, the medium italic, bold, bold italic, and ultra. Notice that each one of these guys costs money. They all cost money. So if you're going to buy this whole set, you're going to be laying out $35 for each one of them to have them in your library. Okay. Now you can use them right here. See here, you could try it for free. All right, they'll let you try it, but you can't really use it. It's really just a trial kind of a deal. But in reality, the client already has bought this. So let's get back to our discussion. It's copyright restrictions. Find a font not already on your system that you would want to use on the poster. Make sure that the font you choose works well with the font your client requires you to use. And keep in mind, you also want it to make sense within the context of the musical festival fundraiser for a community garden. There's two things you need to think about, not just the fact that you're using this Novarise. You're also going to be producing this design for a musical festival in a community garden. It's really important that you think about these things to make sure that you get choices that truly make sense, because believe me when I tell you, there's a whole lot of fonts that you could pick that would work well with Novarise. But it's also the context that both fonts are going to be used in, which is the music festival fundraiser. Again, keep that in mind when you do this. So once you have determined the font, take a screenshot of it and embed it in your initial post. Also, a link to the font, then address the following. After reading the client's font copyright information, how would you acquire this font if you did not already own it? Explain your reasoning and your approach. Things to consider. Can he give it to you to use since it's for his project? Well, theoretically, if you are doing work for hire for your client and you're going to be working on a project for him, since he essentially has the copyright usage of that font, you can use it for his project, but his project only. You can't use it anywhere else legally. It belongs to him, and as long as you are using it on a project for him, you should have no trouble using it. But again, you cannot use it in any other way. If you wanted to use it on another project legally, what you would need to do is you would need to go in and you would buy it yourself, because again, there are limits to his licensing, and he would have to respect that, and you as a professional would have to respect that as well. Are there any circumstances where you wouldn't have to purchase it for yourself? Well, theoretically, if you're going to be working on projects for the client who already owns this font, the usage rights, I should say, he doesn't per se own the font, he owns usage rights. Now, they might be limited, and that you would have to find out from them, but theoretically, if he has usage rights, you should be able to utilize it for any project that he wants for him. So there are the circumstances where you would have to purchase it for yourself. Essentially, if you wanted to use it beyond the scope of his work, okay, your client's work. Would the conditions of the usage term change if it was a pro bono project? Well, that you'd have to look up, but as far as I can tell, there is no legal usage rights given to you to use this unless you purchase it. And then once you purchase it, depending upon how you purchase it, what kind of usage you intend to use it for, then perhaps a pro bono project would be available. But that you should look up, okay? For the additional font you choose for the poster, embed a screenshot and a link to the font you choose. And in a minute, I'm going to take you to a place where you can go in and get 1,001 free fonts. There are fonts that are there for you to use. The only thing that they ask you to do, and you don't actually have to do this, but it is something that would show good intent if you were really going to use this, they ask you to contribute some money to the font designer. Now, these are not the best fonts in the world, but they certainly are legitimate fonts and something that you could use, all right? When looking for the additional fonts, what was your strategy for finding a font to adhere to your client's budget? You know, again, you would have to determine what that is. One of the strategies would be probably economy. That might be a possible way to go. And again, 1,001 free fonts. Basically, if you find a font in there that you think would work for that that music event, you could conceivably use that font and pay a very small fee it's just more or less a token fee to the designer, and then you'd be able to use that font. So there's one possible scenario for you to consider. What was your thought process? What did you look at? What did you look at on the client's font? Well, again, look at the font. See what the font is. It's Novarese. I showed you what it looks like, but to come up to a best solution for an additional font, one of the things that I just said to you before, I'll say it again, is context. What context are both of these fonts going to be used in? That's a very important point, because it should govern, as a designer, it should govern the direction that you take this font choice in. I mean, every single font is not going to work for some sort of a musical event such as this. So you really have to think about that. Think about the font and the context that font and your font will be used in. These are very important points for you to consider when you actually do your writing. What would you do if none of the free fonts you looked at had the quality you were needing, but you found the font that you needed, to purchase? Well, obviously, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to examine whether there's a budget for you to purchase this, and to what extent would you have to purchase. If you go back to the Novarese, let's go back there for 1 second. You're going to see that this is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different weights. 6 weights. And according to this link, which came from the topic, this is not a link I found, this is the link that was supplied to you by the topic. To buy this Novarese family, you would have to pay $35 for all 6 of these fonts in order to have all of the fonts. Now, here's the question. Let's go back to here. So, if none of the free fonts had the quality you're needing, found the font that you needed to what would your decision be oh, wait a minute. But you found a font that you would need to purchase. All right, so what you would do in this particular case, again, is think in terms of context. What is your intent for this particular font? Are you going to use it as a headline only? If you're going to use it as a headline only, let's go back to Novarese. They have different weights here. The headline weights would be probably medium, bold, or ultra. So that would mean that if you were going to just use this font that you're buying that you can't get for free, well, maybe you only have to spend $35 for that. And maybe in that particular context, $35 isn't so expensive, and maybe the client could afford that. These are the things that I believe you want to think about when you do this. What would your decisions, would your decision be different if it were a pro bono project? How and why? Well, the only thing I can tell you on that is if it's a pro bono project, you are not charging for it. Theoretically, a pro bono project would not enable you to have any budget. However, if it turned out that the pro bono project would allow for a small amount of money to offset costs for you, not to pay you, mind you, but to offset expenses to you, then perhaps you might talk to your pro bono client about the possibility of purchasing that font. However, the likelihood of that is probably not too good. So what I would have to say to you in this particular context, as far as your decision is concerned, is probable that you're going to stick to fonts that you have, system fonts that you're going to use for this pro bono project, or you're going to try to take a look for that that freebie kind of font. Now, I'm going to take you real quick. Let's just go through this to finish this up. For your citation, you might use articles that discuss guidelines for font copyrights, and then fonts can be redistributed to others for use. You can also find articles from experts that explain how certain copyrights can be used. This is very true. You should have very little trouble looking up, say, guidelines for font copyrights. I mean, if you did a Google search on guidelines for font copyrights, I would be amazed if you didn't come up with a ton of sites where you could literally go in and click, and they could give you all kinds of information where you could extract out a nugget for your citation. You shouldn't have any trouble with that. Your initial and reply posts. And this is very important because a number of you people are not replying. You're not making reply posts. Very important to make reply posts. Work to develop a group understanding of this topic. Challenge each other. Build on each other. Always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. And listen, guys, one of the most important thing that you do in your discussions and your replies is to see whether you could maybe move the conversation forward. Involve a question in some way so that perhaps somebody would look at the question and be invited to come back at you with a reply. So again, very important stuff for you to consider here. You know, again, here is your reply requirements. Please read and understand these reply requirements before you do it. It's very important. Follow-up posts, you need to have at least 50 words. I can tell you flat out right now, some of you have not always hit the 50-word mark, and I've been rather lenient about it. So I'm going to say to you, you got to step up your game a little bit with this, please. Now, before we get out of here, what I want to do is I want to take you to 1001 free fonts. Is this the only place? Is this the only game in town? No. There's tons of these places, and you can download fonts from here. Now, I did already download Good Vibes. Why? Just for the heck of it. But let me just show you. Here it is. You got download, free. This is a demo. I downloaded what's known as a demo, which means essentially I can't really use it unless I donate something to the designer. Okay, now look at the right here. From Balloon Blocks by Galdino Otten. This one is free for personal use. So what you have to do before you actually download one of these things, you have to kind of get a sense of what's going on here. In this case, the one that I downloaded is a demo, and I would have to donate to the designer or buy a commercial license for it. Here is donationware. I would only have to, for a Harley script, I would only have to donate to the designer, and I would be able to use, because it says donationware. Now here's another one, avocado and lime. This is free for personal use. All it asks is that you potentially download to designer. And now here's one, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because this one here is actually pretty nice, and it says free for personal use. Now all it says here is download and donate to the designer. Here's another one that I kind of like, Moving Skate. So I'm going to download that one. There it is. Look, this is all there is to it. And you get a zip file, and you click on it. Now watch what happens. Now this probably doesn't have an entire library. There's Sweet Hipster. I'm going to drag that to the desktop. And I want to also download Moving Skate. Download that one as well. There it is, Moving Skate. Hit OK. So now I've downloaded a couple of files. All right, Moving Skate. So I've done more than what I was asked to do. Because what I was actually asked to do is this. Watch. I'm going to come up here. I got this tool here, which is called my snipping tool. And what it does essentially is it allows me to create a capture. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to drag right across here like that. And there is my snipping tool capture. I'm going to go File, Save that, Save As. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go into my typography, week 4, and I'm going to call this, when is it? What did I get here? Moving Skate. Okay. M-O-V-I-N-G-S-K-A-T-E. Moving Skate. Boom. JPEG. There it is. There it is. So that right there is essentially what they want you to do. They want you to screen capture this, and they want you to insert it into your discussion to show the font that you're talking about. Then the other thing that you would do here is you would come up here and you would click and select this and copy it, and you would insert that also into your discussion, and then you will have met the requirements for your discussion. Okay? So this is 1001 free fonts download. I will, if you would like me to do this, let me go to my discussion. Let's go back to discussion, and let me go back up to the top. So you basically, that I've given you the overview of what this is all about. Let me come back to my course, and let me go to announcements. And what I'm going to do very quickly so that you could see me do it is I'm going to create an announcement, and this is 1001 free fonts. Okay? And then I'm going to click and go Control V, paste it in there. And now you have the link. And I'm going to save that. And now you have an announcement. Go back to the announcements. And 1001 free fonts. One more time, go back to it. This is 1001 free fonts. There are many, many, many more of these, okay? So I'm just trying to make this a little easier for you by grabbing one. And this one is a decent one. It's got some nice fonts in it, and it's the way the way you navigate this is you have these numbers, downloadable fonts. You can go through all these numbers if you want, or you could look at new fonts, top fonts, and then these are all categorized fonts. These are all categorized. So Gothic fonts, horror, handwriting, I don't know. You know, you just go through them at sans serif. Look, sans serif. You got serif, all of them. And up here, you have the alphabet. So if you had a particular one that you're looking for in the alphabet, there's plenty of ways for you to look for 1001 free fonts. What I just want to point out to you one more time, and I'll be done with this, is that there are different classifications, and you find that right here. This one's a demo, and in order to use this, you have to buy it. This is free for personal use. You have to download it. You can use it, buy a commercial license, and I think you're going to find that you'll get more if you buy the commercial license. Let me do this real quickly. Let me just open up one of those fonts. Let me go to Sweet Hipster, and there's Sweet Hipster, and let me create a new folder. Call it Sweet, S-W-E-E-T, H-I-P-S-T-E-R, Sweet Hipster, and I'm going to drag through here, and I'm going to drop that into that folder, Sweet Hipster. And then I'm going to close this, and I'm actually going to keep that as well. Now I can come into my Sweet Hipster, and I can come over to my Sweet Hipster, which is the PNG file. There's the TrueType file, font file. I believe this is what I want to double click on. There you have it. Okay, so look at what you get. This is the Sweet Hipster, and it's an open type font. It shows you what the font looks like. So if I decide I want to use this, it also shows you up here that you get all of the lowercase letters, you get all of the uppercase letters, you get the numbers, you get a number of marks, you know, accompanying marks, and you get one or two little glyphs. You don't get an awful lot in the way of glyphs, okay? To install this, there's the button right there. If I click on that, it's installing Sweet Hipster into my font folder. Now I can go in and I can use Sweet Hipster in Adobe Illustrator, in Adobe Photoshop, and also in InDesign. I can use it in all of my Adobe products. It's really not that difficult. This is something that's very basic and something that you should know how to do. That's it, basically. So I've given you as much as I can give you to get you where you got to go. You should be able to follow my lead and be able to go through all of this and take a look. I mean, take a little time and look at this. There's a lot of interesting things in here, and you can get yourself some nice fonts. There's a lot of garbage in there, yes, but there's an awful lot of really good stuff. This Art Brewery's nice. On the Ridge is nice, you know. Most of these, look at these, are donate to the designer. I mean, if you send the guy $5, if you're really serious about using some of these fonts, there's some really nice ones here, actually, you know. So again, you know, just keep it in mind, all right? So that's the 1001 free fonts. There's the Novarese, all right? So now what you're doing is you're going to take Novarese, you're going to compare it to something in here for your project, okay, which is, in our case, that, let me go to my discussion again because I forget the total context of this. Go back to discussion, and what your context is, let's go down to prompt. Okay, commission to create a poster for a music festival fundraiser in a community garden. There you go. So you have to think about it. What would be a good font to use for that purpose? And then, of course, you're going to use it within the context of the Novarese font right there. So that is part of the equation that you think about. And then, of course, the other part being the music festival fundraiser. Okay? So I hope that helps, and you can go in and you can also take a look at there's my discussion right there, which doesn't exactly deal with it. It's mostly talking about some of the different legal ramifications for you, okay? So there we go. All right, so I'm going to close this, and let's go to this. So here we have our assignment for the week. Now, what we're going to be doing in this assignment, this is our final assignment. Let me first of all go back and open this up. Let me go to DES. Where are you at? It's where are you? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There it is, right there. Week 4. Here we go. And let's see. Invitation assessment week 3. Here we go. Okay, I just wanted to open this up for a minute, because in a minute I'm going to talk about this. So here's our final assignment. Identify and define the difference between decorating and communicating when using effects on type. So here's the deal. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a poster. Let me go up a little bit so you can see what the actual assignment is. Typographic poster design. What's most important for you to understand is this is what's known as a typographic poster. You're not going to be able to use any graphics. If you're going to be using graphics, the graphics have to be the type itself. That doesn't mean you can't be creative. I've tried to be creative in my poster design, and I'm going to try. I have 2 hours to do this. I'm going to try to show you how I created this poster, both in Adobe InDesign and in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to do InDesign first because that would be the most correct program to use. And then if I get through with that one, I'm going to show you how I would go back in and make the same thing in Adobe Illustrator, because it can be done either way. And then, of course, how to apply a grid to assure proper alignment and flow of text. I used an informal grid. And what I did essentially was I drew out a number of guides from the vertical and horizontal axes to place type in certain alignment positioning. All right, so I will show you how I did that as well. There are times when you may find yourself unable to find imagery that fits the needs of your design project, or when you need a different approach than using images to clarify your text. This is when having some practice in creating interesting designs with type alone. This is incredibly important, type alone, because a lot of people have a real problem understanding how to do this. A designer has no trouble designing with type alone. It's just an element, and what you do is you use the element visually, like you would use an image. It's not that difficult. As a matter of fact, it's challenging and it's fun, and you can come up with some good solutions. It will give you an alternative and the ability to create some unique design works. All right, I'm not going to go into this whole thing, communicate, don't decorate. You really should read this, though. There's a big difference between design and decoration. I totally agree with that. I mean, decoration, and believe me when I tell you, decoration enters into it, but decoration is way secondary in the context of design. It's a necessary part of it, but it should not be a base principle. The base principle being design, and decoration being just one of the things that you can incorporate into your design. So it's a process that includes planning for a specific purpose. Okay, now again, this is very interesting. I really believe you should read all this. I don't want to do that because I really want to get to work here. So you're going to continue down and read all this stuff here and come to your prompt. This is where I really want to start with you, right here for the prompt. For this assignment, and the reason I want to actually read through this prompt is so that you're prepared to do this, because I've noticed a number of times the students that some of you have been a little confused or are not right with what you're supposed to be doing, and I'd like to try to avoid that problem. So I want to just read through this to give you a pretty good idea before I actually go in and show you what I did and show you how I did it. All right, you'll be designing a typographical poster. Keep that in mind, a typographical poster. Everything that is going to be used on your poster will be some sort of type element, nothing more. Very important. The theme of the poster will be your choice of, and here is another very important point, one, just one of the 19 rules of typography. Now, what are the 19 rules of typography? Well, I actually have it's been covered in week 2 and 3 of your course media. But what I've done is, and in order to do this, I have to go back in here again. Let's go back in here. I should have not shut this. I forgot that I was even going to be going back here. We go log into Canvas again. Here we go. Come on. There we go. And let's go into here. And let's go to announcements again. And there we go. Helpful for your poster. Here we go. Helpful file for your poster design. If I click on this, I come in here, and here is a PDF for you, the 19 rules for typography. I am going to click on this, and I'm going to download it. I actually have it already, but I'm going to download it, and I'm going to double-click the link, open it up. Here it is. Now, I have to wait a second because this thing is kind of huge, but I'm going to, there we go. Okay. The Lexicon of Letters, the 19 Rules of Typography by Killiam, fall of 2014. So what I did basically was I went online and I tried to find something that gave me the 19 rules of typography. I came across this PDF, so I decided that since this was the basis of your project, I would share this with you. That's why I put it in as an attachment to one of the announcements, so you could go and you could download this and you could use this. This talks about the 19 rules of typography, and I use this to extract. Right here is my copy. This is the copy that I used for my poster. Now, the thing that you have to understand is you're not given copy. You have to generate copy yourself. You have to come up with the copy yourself. So let me tell you what I did. I decided that I was going to use the title. Oh, here we go again. Yes, this is annoying. Okay. The 19 Rules of Typography. I have the headline here. The headline here, and I chose Rule 2. So I actually put the headline 19 Rules of Typography. That's one element that I wanted to use on my poster. And I chose rule number 2. So I'm going to actually incorporate rule number 2 into my poster in some way. All right. And then what I did was I went and I found some lines from Killiam. Be mindful not to use too many different typefaces at any one time, period. The main reason for using more than one typeface is to create emphasis or to separate one part of the text from another. When too many different typefaces are used, the reader is unable to determine what is and what is not important. So those are 3 really solid lines that talk about why one would use, be limiting the number of typefaces that you used. Then down here, I chose to pull out and I also give credit to the author of this statement, and I do so here as well. Some things never change, and in the typographic realm, principles upon which sound practice relies remains essentially the same for centuries, which I completely agree with. So again, that was a statement that I used. So what I did, just so that you understand, is I didn't write this copy. I found these bits of copy, and I reasoned out that I wanted to use the 19 rules of typography in my poster somewhere, and I wanted to identify my rule because we are asked to do a rule. I chose rule number 2, not to use too many different typefaces. And then I found the 3 nice little lines of copy that I could use for my poster, and I attribute it to the person who stated the 3 lines. And then I found this other piece somewhere else, which I thought was also a really nice statement, was by Rob Carter, and I basically put that into my poster as well. So I'm going through this, and I'm trying to make this a point because you have to find this information. This information isn't given to you. You're not getting copy given to you. You have to create this poster, and you have to put some information on the poster. I'm trying to give you an idea of how I approached it. I started off by going to a source, which is the Lexicon of Letters, 19 Rules of Typography. I went through the rules, and I chose my rule. Rule number 1. Rule number 2. Be mindful not to use too many different typefaces at any one time. The main reason for using more than one typeface is to create emphasis or to separate one part of text from another. When too many different typefaces are used, the reader is unable to determine what is and what is not important. Okay, so there you can see where I got that type from. Okay, so basically what I did was well, you'll see as I design with this, but this is how I did it. And you can go in and you can do something similar to mine. I'm not asking you to go in and do exactly what I did. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm trying to help you by giving you some things that will make your job easier. This PDF of the 19 Rules of Typography should be one way that it will make your job easier for you. Okay, so there's that. And there's my copy, which I'll get to shortly. And there's this. I can close this now. Actually, let me leave it open because you never know. All right, so here we go. The assignment instructions. Well, actually, be creative in your approach. The poster should be interesting and engaging and not simply a page layout. Now, what are they talking about, a page layout? This is a page layout, okay? We're not doing anything like this. This was last week or the week before. This is a totally different thing. And I'm not saying that this isn't creative, but what we're doing in this poster is creativity on a completely different level than this. This is more of a technical layout where you have a certain amount of copy that has to fit within a page, and you're trying to do this in the most beautiful way that you can. All right? What we're doing is we're creating a poster, and a poster has to be singular and eye-catching, whereas this thing here looks like it's part of a book. It's part of a greater whole, okay? So I'm only showing you this because I just want you to, they're talking about this, that this poster should not be simply a page layout, which is what this is, okay? Be creative in your approach. Use the grid as a guide, but allow yourself to break out of the grid as needed for interest. I generally do not use formal grids. What I generally do, I use what are known as alignment grids. What I do is I start putting elements on the page, and I grid out areas where I want things to align to. I'm going to show you a little bit of that when I actually go in and start building mine, okay? And it even says here, use a grid, but allow yourself to break out of it as needed. So that's not telling you that you have to use a grid and just use a grid and be totally formal to it. It's telling you to be mindful of using a grid and how you can utilize it to your best advantage. Be mindful of every element and its placement, which is, again, what I do and what you should be doing. I mean, this is, as designers, that's what we're all about, is how we place elements, how we stack things up, how we emphasize things when we talk about hierarchy in the past weeks. You know, what's the most important element? What's the element that's doing the visual, the graphicking? You know, what is the big picture element in there? You know, what is the story we're trying to tell? That's really what it comes down to. Everything has a purpose in the design. It's not there for decoration only. Again, you're going to see in mine, well, I'll get to that when I get to it. You'll see it. Observe the craft principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. It will help ensure that everything has an effective place in the competition. This is something you really need to get used to, and you will in time. Everybody utilizes it. You'll get to a point where you don't have to actually physically think about it. You will be working with them just almost instinctively, but it takes time. So the poster will need to include the rule and the number listed. So again, go back to my my information, what I chose. Let me bring this over here so I can get them two side by side as best I can. I'm having a little bit of trouble doing this. Maybe I can shorten this. Yeah, I can shorten it. There we go. Let me bring this up now. That might do it. Move this over. Move that up. Okay, here. That's better. Better. Okay, so the rule and the number listed. So I start off with 19 rules of typography, the rule and the number listed, rule number 2. That's basically what that says. The paragraph of text covering the rule of typography you have chosen. What does it say? Do not alter the copy. So basically what I did, okay, I basically took that copy by Killiam, which talks about the rule. And what I did with mine was I turned it into 3 paragraphs. Instead of being 1, I separated them into 3 distinct paragraphs. Now, I have a reason for doing that, and it relates to the rule itself, which is not to use too many different typefaces. What I did in my design, and you'll see it in a minute, was I actually went in and I designed using as many different typefaces as I could. And I tried to balance everything so in the end it looked really nice. So in a sense, what I'm doing is I'm violating the rule. And I'm doing it deliberately to illustrate the point. Okay? You'll see when I get there. And I do this because I'm experienced as a graphic designer. I know how to do these things from experience. And I can even think through them. So, all right, so let's see here. Graphic elements created only by type or simple shapes. That's a very important point. And you'll see how I did that in a minute. Type characters only. Again, glyphs and shapes may be used. I didn't use any glyphs. I didn't really have to use any glyphs, but you can. Okay. No images or illustrations. Noticeable and functional grid to keep the design organized and keep cohesive. And again, you can download and use these column grids if you want. I did not do that. I used up here where it said use it. You know, you can use the grid to your effect. I used a very informal grid. Okay. Credit your text source, except from 19 rules of typography, which I basically credited to Killiam and to Rob Carter. I did not put in a typical. I did not put in your typical. I just basically credited the author of the statements, that because it's a poster. Okay. Digital color and type, Rob Carter. Okay. So again, mine has been basically accredited. Now, finally, before we're out of here, you can use Illustrator or InDesign. Now, I did it in both. I'm going to try. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get through them both tonight, but I'm going to try to show you both of them because I'm going to at least show you both of them. I may not be able to build both of them because I may not have enough time to do it. But I'm going to start off with InDesign, but I'm going to also show you how I did the same poster in Illustrator. Basically, you could do this project either way. The size is 11 by 17 tabloid. Color is allowed. It's CMYK, and I used color. Save both a native file, which would mean if you're doing it in Illustrator, it would be an AI file. If it's in Design, it's an INDD file. And you're also going to create a PDF. At the end of my discussion tonight, what I will do is I will package my PDF. I'm sorry, package my InDesign file, and show you how that's done. Now, according to the submissions, really all you have to do is name it this way and submit a PDF. So really, it doesn't look like you have to package anything. All you have to do is create the PDF and submit the PDF. So what I'm looking for you to do is submit the PDF. Now, also keep in mind that it's telling you you will also need to make a JPEG of your poster and put it on your in your Behance portfolio site. And then, of course, email your FPA and CC me with the URL to the page, which I would imagine you've done before, okay? And then copy and paste the URL into the comments when submitting as well. So basically, those are your instructions right there. I really, really strongly recommend that you read through this carefully. I went through it kind of quickly. Make sure that you understand exactly what you're doing so that you can get this right, okay? Now let's move on to our poster, and let me close this out. There we go. Wait a minute. There we go. Stop video. There we go. There we go. Okay. All right. There is my poster. So as you can see, what I did here was I created and I'm in Adobe InDesign. I created a black background because I felt the black background for this particular poster would be extremely dramatic. I started off doing it on a white poster and with black, That's how I started, and that's probably how I'll start when I actually build it for you, to show you how I build this thing. But after I built the whole thing in black and white, I liked it in black and white. I thought it was kind of nice. But then I thought, you know, I have to get involved. I have to get involved with color somehow. I really need to get color into this thing. So then I decided I would throw the background black into it, which makes a very dramatic presentation of these elements. And then what I would do is I would show you how I work with my type to create my poster. So this is my poster, the 19 rules of typography. Rule number 2. And then my copy here, I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can see what I'm doing here. What I'm doing here is be mindful not to use too many different typefaces at any one time. That's in one typeface. Watch, it's Baskerville. The main reason for using more than one typeface is to create emphasis or to separate one part of the text from another. So in this particular case, in order to create the emphasis and to separate one part from the other, I used Arial. Now I went back over to here. When too many different typefaces are used, the reader is unable to determine what is and what is not important. In that particular case, I went to Clarendon. So now I end up with 3 different blocks of copy that make 3 different entirely unique statements. It is kind of going counter to what the principle says, but in the context of a poster such as this, it makes perfect sense, because what it does is it completely separates and isolates each one of those statements, making them singular so that you can look at them and read them and get the idea from them, and then, you know, move on to the next one. Then what I did was I created one look for my call out. And you'll notice when I get down here, okay, I have that same basic look for the call out. And then this copy here, which is a completely different statement and used in a different way and in a different position, I go back to using Chaparral Bold. And again, I deliberately went out of my way to make sure that I use different fonts in every case. All right, so let's go to the View menu, Fit Page and Window. This font here, the number 2, I can't tell you what that, or I can't show you what that is because I outlined it, but I can tell you what it is. It's Bernard MT Condensed. Bernard MT Condensed. And what I did with this is I broke it apart, and I'm going to do this again in a minute. I'm going to show you how I built this whole thing. So that now, here we go. I'm going to leave this open. Oh, before I do that, though, let me go in and show you my Illustrator, because I may not get to this. Here is the same thing. I literally did the same thing in Adobe Illustrator. I mean, there's a very minor difference to it. It's basically the same exact look, but this was built in Adobe Illustrator. So as you can see, they're very similar to one another. You see what I mean? They're very close to one another. So the only difference is that, of course, I did this in Illustrator and I did this in Photoshop, and I did them in separate applications. So, you know, the shapes of the boxes are slightly different, but very similar to one another. So, again, you could do it either way. I am going to start off by doing it in Adobe InDesign because that's my preferred application to do this in. So let me start off by going File, New, Document, and I'm going to create a new print document. It's custom. Let's say it's custom. Yeah, custom. And then what I want to do is I want to make this thing, the width is going to be 11 inches and the height is going to be 17 inches, 11 by 17. And I want it to be vertical, not horizontal. 11 inches wide by 17 inches tall. Number of pages, 1. Number of columns, 1. Now, the margins, I have a margin set of 1/2 inch. Okay, so that means this, and just so that you understand, by establishing margins such as I'm doing here, that's the beginning of your gridding. Okay, now I notice that this guy here is set to 75. I don't want that. I want the margins to be 50, 50, 50, 50. This is actually the beginning of the gridding. In other words, this is the area that I'm going to stop putting elements in. It's going to stop at that line, not going to go any further unless the elements actually bleed off the page. Okay? So that's very important. Then, of course, bleed and slug. I am going to have something that's going to bleed. So what I would do is I would set bleeds at 0.125, which equals 1/8 of an inch. So those are the settings that I chose for mine. And you can pretty much use the same settings for yours because, again, it's 11:17, and that's how you would set it up, 11 by 17. Make sure that it's portrait. Pages, you only need one page. Yeah, since this is not columns of text like this, okay? That's 3 columns. You only need 1 column. You don't really need 2 or 3 columns. You just don't need it. And then, of course, you want your margins, which are the outer edge margins. Well, let me get to it in a minute. And then your bleed and your slug, which is bleed and the slug are 1/8 of an inch or 0.125 of an inch. I'm going to hit create. And there it is. So let me show you what's going on here. That black line is my trim. That is the area where my piece is going to trim to, okay? This right here is my margin area. So what that margin area does is it keeps me from going any closer to that trim area unless the thing is going to bleed off the page. Now that blue line there, let me go to document setup. Let me see what happened here. Bleed and slug. Where's my bleed? 0.125. Yeah, it's there, but I'm not seeing it. Slug. I'm going to get rid of the slug. Let me get rid of the slug. Let me go to 0. And there we go. Hit OK. Now, there you go. OK. So there is my bleed. See that red line? That's the bleed. Now, what the bleed is, if you have an element that's going to go off the page, I have 2. I have 2 elements that are going to go off the page. I have a background color of black. It's going to go off the page. So that color has to go all the way to that bleed line in order for that to work properly. The next thing is I have that 2, that massive 2 that I created. And that 2 is going to actually bleed off the page. You could see it right there. And it actually bleeds off the page there. Okay? But when you look at it, it comes right up to the edge of the page, which is the exact look I'm looking for. I want it to be big and bold and fill up the page. That is my major graphic element on my page, okay? And then, of course, the rule number is my second or support elements that go to my 2, okay? All right, so let's see if we can build this thing. Now, the next thing that I need to do here, here's my pages. There's only one page, okay? Here's my layers. Now, there's only one layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer. Now, the layer number 1 is going to be my background layer. Background layer. Now, on my background layer, I'm going to create a shape, and that shape is going to bleed all the way around. So I'm going to take that shape all the way out to my bleed lines, all the way around, just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that with black. So now I have a background. Let me go view. Let me open. I guess that's it. Let me go view, fit, page, and window. There we go. Okay, if I deselect that, you can see that I have my overall background of black, and it's on the background layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to hide that layer. Okay, so now when I want, I can bring it back to look at it. I can hide it. But right now, I'm going to be working on layer number 2, which is my text layer. Text layer. Hit OK. And this is where I am going to be doing the basic work. Okay, so in other words, if you take a look at this, I think I got the same thing going on here. Yeah, you see the same things going on here. Got a background layer, and I have my type layer, text layer. Now I'm going to go to the view menu. I'm going to go to screen mode. I'm going to go to normal, and you can see that I have a couple of little guides here. Well, actually, I've removed most of the guides. This is the one guide that I didn't remove because I was actually working on this. All right, but this is basically give you an idea of what I'm doing. So let's go to Untitled, and let's take a look at my copy. So I have the 19 rules of typography, rule number 2. Those are the first things that I want to deal with. So what I want to do is I decided, after playing around with this a little bit, and again, you're not going to see me going through the process, the creative process. I'm going to pretty much build this, okay? And what I did was I started by taking the rules of typography, selecting them and copying them, all right? And then I was going to actually get my type tool. I was going to actually bring it in here, and I'm going to click and drag to create a frame. And I'm going to go Command V, and I pasted that in. Now, what happened here was I have this default set to wingdings. So when this comes in, you see a bunch of wingdings, and it looks kind of stupid. So what I'm going to do is, I happen to know that my my rules, the 19 rules, I happen to know that I use Rockwell, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go to slab serif and Rockwell. I believe it was Rockwell extra bold. There it is. Now it's set to Rockwell extra bold. Okay? Now I'm going to, just so that you know, this is on the text layer. I'm setting this on the text layer because the background layer is locked. So this is on the text layer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close this because I'm going to be working pretty much on this text layer with all of this. Open up the character panel here. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to set this from metrics to optical. Okay? The reason I set it from metrics to optical, metrics is what you use if you're going to be using something on the web. Optical is if you're going to be visualizing this, which in the end we will be visualizing this because it's going to be set up in, to print. Okay? And this is going to be 40, I think it's 40, let's see here, it's 43 point, and let's see what we get. And that is right, 43 point. And then what I did was I went into my paragraph panel and I set the alignment to align right as opposed to align left. Now, originally, I had this at the top, but if you take a look, there's too much stuff happening at the top here. And I thought, you know, instead of having this 2 bleeding off the bottom, I thought it looked better to bleed off the top. So what I did was I moved the 19 rules of typography all the way to the bottom. That was just a design decision that I made, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my untitled one. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go to the Object menu, and I'm going to go to Fitting, and then I'm going to fit frame to content. And then I'm going to use my Shift key and my down arrow to move that all the way down until I reach pretty much the bottom. Right about there is good. Right about there is good. Okay? So there is my 19 rules of typography. There's my first element. So now what I want to do is I want to put my second element in. And if you look at my text, my second element is rule number 2. So I think what I'll do before I do anything is I'm going to choose the 2 first. So I'm going to copy that. All right. Actually, don't even need to do that really. I'm just going to create a frame like this. And I'm going to type number 2. A 2. Now again, I get this wingdings. So what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to select that thing. And then the 2 is Bernard. So I'm going to go to, let's go to, I think that's in, let's see, Bernard is in sans serif. Let's see, Bernard empty condensed. There it is right there. Okay, so Bernard empty condensed. And I'm going to try starting this thing off to 72 point. There you go. That is the right font. Okay, so now what I want to do with this thing is I want to make this thing super huge. The best way to do this is to, instead of trying to make it larger by point size, the best thing to do is go to the Type menu and go Create Outlines. Where are you? Right there. Create Outlines. Boom. And now I've actually turned that into an outline form. Okay? And I think I might even be able to do away with that box now. Nope, I can't. Control Z. Let's try it again. Let's go Edit, Cut. All right. Let's see if I can get rid of that frame. Delete. Edit, paste in place. There we go. Okay, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the corner of this thing and hold the Shift key down. I'm actually grabbing the frame that the type is, that type element is in, and I'm going to start dragging it up. I'm holding the Shift key down to constrain it. I don't want to distort it. And I'm going to drag this thing until I reach the bleed line. Look, see where I dragged the top to? I dragged it right off the page until I hit the bleed line right there. Now I'm going to use the right arrow to bring my number 2 element over. Bring it over to here. Bring it all the way over to here. And I'm actually going to walk it off the page until it hits that bleed line as well. So now I have my 2 bleeding at the top, and I have it bleeding on the right. It's very important that you understand this, that you're actually going to bleed this thing. Select it again, hold the Shift key down, Shift key, and I'm just going to drag this thing, making it bigger and bigger and bigger until I bring it down to where it's right about where my 19 rules of typography is, right there. And then what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag a guide out. This is part of my gridding. And I'm going to make sure that my copy lines up beautifully right there. And it is a little bit off, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to right arrow it over twice to bring it into position, and I'm going to bring it up ever so slightly until it sits nicely right in there. That's probably pretty good. Now let's go to the View menu, Fit Page and Window, and let's go to the View menu, and let's go Screen Mode, Preview, and let's look at our poster. So there's the beginning of our poster. And now that I look at this, the typography is a little high. The reason I'm looking at it this way is because I want to visually orient myself. So it's in the right position, left to right, but I think there's too much imbalance, too much space here, and not enough space there. So I'm just going to move it down a little bit. I got to be careful. I can't bring it down too far. And I'll bring it down to about right there, maybe. Now, there's still plenty of space. Now, if I go to the View menu and go back to Screen Mode and go back to Normal, you can see I'm still within my margin area. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to, I could actually bring it down a little bit more, just like that. And now let's go to the View menu, and let's go to Screen Mode, Preview, and let's see what that looks like. And that looks pretty good to me, okay? So now I have my 19 rules of typography. I got this massive 2, which is my visual element. The reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to create this interesting graphic, and my number 2 is going to be my interesting graphic, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is take my type tool, and I'm going to come over here. Let's go back to the View menu first, and let's go to Screen Mode Normal again, okay? And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to create a shape just about like that, nice and big. And on this one here, it's going to be rule. So I could actually copy and paste this, but I'm going to instead just type R-U-L-E, rule, and then I'm going to select it. And the rule is in Arial black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and sans serif. There's Arial. See it? There's Arial. So I select Arial. Now, keep in mind. Oh, let me do this first. Let's go to Arial black. Okay, so Arial black. So this is Arial black. Okay, and this is very important. Arial black. This was, and now it's outlined, but this was Bernard MT condensed. This is Rockwell extra bold. So already I have used 3 different fonts. And what I'm trying to say to you is that by the time my poster is done, I'm going to probably use almost every font will be different. That's the whole point of my sort of tongue-in-cheek design for rule number 2, which is, in fact, don't do what I'm doing. But I'm trying to show you that if you're a good designer, you can do such a thing, and you can make it work, and you can make it work beautifully. So, again, that's my purpose here, is to show you that this is possible, and that's sort of like my tongue-in-cheek approach to this. Okay, so rule number 2 is Arial black. I happen to know that it's 52 points, so I'm going to actually come in here, and I'm going to type in 52. And there's my 52 point. That's what it looks like. Now what I'm going to do is go to the View menu or the Object menu and go Fitting and Fit Frame to Content. And now I have that. And now I'm going to create another little frame here. Another little frame. And this is going to be my, come on you. There we go. And this is going to be my pound sign. All right. And again, it's a wingding, but the pound sign is Adobe Caslon Pro. So I'm going to select that. And I'm going to, let's see if I can do it this way. Adobe Caslon, Caslon Pro, Pro. Now, I don't think it's going to work because it's not in the sans serif area. So it's got to go into serif. Adobe Caslon Pro bold. Yeah, bold. That's it right there. Okay. So that's it. That's Adobe Caslon Pro bold. And again, every font is a different font. So this is going to be set to 196 point. All right, pretty big. 196. 196. Boom. And you can see that it actually is so big that it doesn't fit within the frame. So I have to extend the frame a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I don't have what you would consider a traditional grid going here yet. But don't forget, part of your grid is your margin area. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that this thing here situates itself nicely up underneath there. So I'm going to move this thing up like this. And actually what I want to do is I want to zoom in on this guy. Let's zoom in on that corner so we can take a look at these two elements. And what I think I want to do with this is visually I think I want to move that over just a tiny bit. That's probably close to where I want it to be right there. There we go. And that's probably pretty good. So select this thing, go to Object Fitting, Fit Frame to Content, and now let's go View, Fit Page and Window, and let's go to View, and let's go to Screen Mode Preview, and there is my poster so far. Now I noticed that there seems to be a little bit too much space over here. So I'm going to select both of those items, and I'm just going to use my right arrow to very carefully walk this over a little tiny bit, just about like that. And I think that actually sits a little bit nicer in there. Let's go back to the View menu and let's go to Screen Mode Normal. And you can see, if I zoom in here real carefully, you can see that basically I'm within the margin, which is where I want to be. And I've actually, my margin's over here, I've actually moved it over so that it visually comes a little closer to that shape right there and gives me a little bit of a nicer look for that element up in the corner. View, Fit Page and Window. And now the next thing that I want to do is I want to bring my copy in here and I want to format that copy. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select my type tool again. I'm going to start off by making a shape as big as I can make it, probably about like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select the entire thing. Okay? Now remember, you're going to have to come up with this copy like I did, and it's not that difficult to do. You're just going to have to go and you're going to have to do it. You have to write some copy and decide how you want this to look. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to paste it, Control-V, and unfortunately, once again, it comes in as wingdings. So what I want to do is I want to select the whole thing, and I'm just going to set it basically as, let's see what I got here. Set it as Baskerville, okay? And let's go in and see what that looks like. Let's see, Baskerville. Where are you at? Did it set to Baskerville? There we go. There we go. Baskerville. Okay, so now it's Baskerville, but it's not going to end up being Baskerville. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to really format this whole thing. Okay, so basically what I did with this was I created 3 entirely separate paragraphs, okay? And they're already set. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the first paragraph, which is right here. These are really sentences more than paragraphs, but the way I've got it worked out, they kind of come off looking like individual little pieces of the statement. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay with the Baskerville on this, and that was basically the reason that I chose Baskerville, because I knew the first one was going to be Baskerville. But what I did was I set this to 19/20. So 19 and I set it to be, let's go to the character panel, and I set it to be not metrics but optical. Okay, and also notice that I have this hyphen right here. I don't like hyphens, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to paragraph, and I'm going to deselect hyphenate, and I don't have a hyphen anymore, and I have that line that looks like that. And if I deselect it, that's what it looks like. Okay, now I believe there's too much space in there, so I'm going to go to 20. I think it probably would be better at 20, so let's go back down to 23, 22, 21, 20. Yep, that looks much better. And then what I want to do is this, and now I am not going to set styles for this because there's no secondary type. This is just a once-off kind of a deal. Yeah, so I'm going to select this thing, and then I'm going to go into my paragraph panel, and I'm going to add a little space after, which is right there. Space after is going to separate this slightly. So if I hit space after one time and two times, I get that. And now I got some space. Now I may ultimately go back in and change that, but for now, I'm good with this. All right. So what I'm going to do now is select the next one, which is my next paragraph, which is right here, the middle paragraph, and that's going to be Arial. So let's go into the font, and let's go to sans serif, because it's in sans serif, and Arial is right there. So I want it to be Arial regular, okay? Arial regular, and this is going to be, I have to select it again, this is going to be 16, so I got it set to 12, I'm going to make it 16. 13, 14, 15, 16. There we go. Okay, 16. And then what I want to do is 16 over 20. Okay, like this is this is actually 19 over 19. This is 16 over 20. And the reason I did this was I determined that they looked the most alike that way. Then I'm going to select this thing, and I'm going to come into space after and hit the space after twice again. And now I've separated that, okay? And again, my goal here is to make these look like three entirely different statements. Now I'm going to move on to the next one, which is this guy right here. This is my last one. And the last one is going to be Clarendon. Now, Clarendon is a serif. Go in here and go to serif. And Clarendon, where are you at here? Clarendon, there we go. Clarendon T, I think. Yeah, Clarendon T, light, nope, I want it to be, wait, let's see. Was it Clarendon T, light? Let me go back here. Clarendon T, medium. I think it was medium that I used. Yeah, Clarendon T, medium, there we go. And now with that one, Clarendon T, that's 15, 12, 13, 14, 15, okay? And then over 18, over 19, over 20, all right? And then space after, all right, again, space after, right there. Now, there you have the three different fonts that I used for my body copy, and it really looks very close to what I have going on here. And it will look even closer when I actually finish it. So there you have that. Now I have Killiam, all right? So what I want to do with this is I basically want to set that. This is my citation. And I used, if I'm not mistaken, I used, going to serif, I went into sans serif, yeah, Arial, and I believe I used Arial. Whoops, did I deselect that by accident? Here it is. Yeah, here we go. Arial black, I believe is what it is. Yep, that's what it is. And I have a space here, I think. I actually think there's a space. There we go. Okay, now, the other thing that I did was this. I went over here, and let me move this cursor over. There we go. I also put a tab stop into this. So I'm going to place my cursor in front of that little hyphen, and I'm going to hit tab. And that moves my text over to the beginning of where I want this to go. Then I'm going to go to the type menu, and I'm going to come down to where it says tabs. Okay. Now you can also find tabs up here, type table. Where is it at? No, it's not in there. I'm sorry. It isn't. It is just in here. Okay. So type tabs, There's my tabs. And what I want to do is I want it to have a flush or a left justified tab. So I click on that. I'm going to click to place my cursor into that bar across the ruler. And you can see a little blue highlight over top of that left justified. And I'm going to start moving this slowly over. And as I do that, you see a little black line is dragging. And watch when I stop. It moves my type over to that position. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of get it to be over here. So I'm just going to slowly grab that again, and I'm going to keep moving it further over until I reach visually where I want that to be. And I'm almost there. I'm going to come a little bit further over and a little bit more. And that's probably really good right there. Now, the only thing is this hangs down a little bit lower than I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy right here, go to the character panel, and I'm going to do a baseline shift. And I'm going to go upward, baseline shift up about maybe 10. There we go. That's probably good right there. There. So now what I've done is I've placed this copy exactly where I want it. I can get rid of this for the time being. Select this guy. And I'm going to go Object, Fitting, and then Fit Frame to Content. And let's go to the View menu, and let's go Screen Mode, Preview, and Fit Page and Window. And there is my copy. Now what I would probably do with this is I'd probably bring it down a little bit, maybe to about there. There we go. And then what I would do is go to the View menu and go to Screen Mode Normal. And there's my guide. And maybe what I would do is I'd come over here and I'd drag another guide out and move that guide over to about here. Let's see if I can get my guide placed where I want it. I'm having a little trouble with that guide placement. Let's see if I can get that guide placed where I want it. I want it to be right there. Up. Here we go. That's where I want it. Okay. Now let's go down here and let's see if I can maybe position this the way I want it. I want it to go right like that. There we go. So there again is part of my gridding, Fit Page and Window. I know my gridding is very informal, but that's how I choose to work. These are actually part of my gridding process. So I now have 2/3 of this thing built. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another text frame down into here. Okay, and it's going to be a nice big text frame right into there, right like that. Okay, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get the Rob Carter statement. I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go Control V to paste that. And again, I end up with a whole bunch of wingdings. But what I want to do before I do anything with this is I want to get them to be white so we can see them. And then what I want to do with this is my quote, let's see here, is, what was this one? I think it was Chaparral Bold. Let's go here and let's go to Serif. And let's see, is it Chaparral? Where are you? Maybe it's in Slab Serif. Yeah, that's it, Chaparral Pro, right there. And I believe the size of this is 28/30. Let's come in here and let's make that 28. And then this is going to be, yep, that's going to be 30. And that's going to be 30. And then there we go. And actually, I think that's probably right. Let me just check the original. Yeah, that's basically right. And so I'm going to zoom in here and position everything. So there is my, and I'm going to move it up like this. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is Rob Carter. Again, I'm going to place my cursor in front of Rob Carter, and I'm going to hit Tab. Now, why I'm doing this is because I don't want to align it. I can go in and align it to the right, but I'm moving it over this way because I choose to do it this way. It's just a choice that I make. I mean, I could come into the paragraph panel, wrong one, I could come into the paragraph panel and I could make it align right. That's the other way you could do it. But you can see it goes further out, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be a little bit on the inner side. So I'm going to go to the type menu and go to tabs. And once again, I'm going to grab this tab, come in here and click, and I'm going to just start moving this thing over to about there. And I went too far. I'll bring it back in and a little bit more, right, like that. That's probably pretty good. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the Rob Carter again. And what I did with this was go up to this one here, Killiam, right there. All right, and this one here is Arial Black. So what I'm going to do with Rob Carter is I'm going to select that, and I am going to use the same on this one. That's Serif. Sans serif, sorry. And then it's going to be Arial, and then Arial Black. Boom, there we go. And as you can see, it's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to take this guy here, and I'm going to move it over a little bit, and let's see if I can get Rob Carter back. There we go. Rob Carter, got to go over it a little bit more. Right about like that is probably good. All right, now let's take a look at this. Let's go to the View menu, pick Page and Window, and go to View, and then let's go Screen Mode and Preview. And there is my poster design. That is my poster design. The only thing that I might do here is with the Rob Carter, I may do the same thing where I go to my type menu and I may baseline shift it up a little tiny bit, just about like that, make it a little bit tighter. That's really pretty good. And I might now drop it down just a touch like that. And then, yeah, I think I'm in pretty good shape. That looks very much like my other. So there's my first step in this. This is the beginning of my process. So now the next part of the process is how do I color this? So we already have, let's go to my layers panel. We already have a black background, and when you apply this, the only thing you see is that line right there because everything's black so far. So we have to get some color into this. So the first thing is go to the window menu and you go down to color and you open up your swatches. Now my swatches are already open. They're right here. I have some colors in here that have no bearing whatsoever on my project. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to delete those colors, just like that. I want to delete those colors. There we go. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add some colors. Now I have chosen two very specific colors. Let me go back to my poster and show you. I've chosen, let's go to the View menu and let's go to Screen Mode and let's go to Preview. So in my design, I've used this mango-y color and I've used this, I don't know, deep peach color and white. And then, of course, black over here. So that's my color scheme. And they're my colors. And I actually started out doing this in Adobe Illustrator, and I did it a totally different way. I'm going to come in and do a little bit of this if I can to show you. But how I would do this in here is, first of all, let's go back to my Untitled, and everything's in black, and there's no colors in here. So what I would do is I'd come over here, and I'd click on New Color Swatch. Now what I would do here is the color mode that I'm using is Process, and CMYK is the color mode. Now, I happen to know that the numbers that I'm going for in my colors, okay, now I'm going to go for the peachy red color first. In the cyan, it's 10. And I'm going to hit Tab to move me down into here. And in the magenta, it's 100. All right? And then in the yellow is 58. Okay, and in the black, it's like 1. And there is my peachy color. So cyan, 10, magenta, 100, yellow, 58, black, 1. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I have that color in there. All right, and this color theme pops up, puts it in there as well. I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to come in here and go New Color Swatch. And this time, again, Process, CMYK. and I'm going to change the colors. This is going to be my mango-y color, okay? And the cyan is 0. There's no cyan. And the yellow is, again, 100. And the, I'm sorry, the magenta. The magenta is 36. That's not 100, it's 36. 36. There we go. Yeah, and the yellow, I believe, is 100. 36, yellow is 79. Nope, 79. Okay. And then I believe the black is 1. There is my color, and I hit OK, and now I have my 2 colors. And also it's in your CC library. So there are my 2 colors, and both of these are process colors. That's what you're looking for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to apply my colors to my elements. Once I do that, I'm going to be able to go back to my layers panel, and I'm going to be able to go back to my layers panel and bring my black out, and you're going to see my creation completely done. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to come in here and get my swatches again. Oh, and by the way, if you want to figure out how to get these colors, how I did this, I really did it in Illustrator. But if you wanted to, I'm going to click on this and make that none. I'm going to double click on that, and here is my color picker. I can go in here and I can play around with any kind of colors that I want. I can move around and I can create all sorts of colors in here. And the important thing is when I get the color that I want, let's say I want that blue color, there's my cyan, magenta, yellow, and black numbers right there. And actually, if I hit OK, add CMYK swatch, you see what it did? It automatically added that color, CMYK swatch. So if I wanted that blue, now I got that blue. So it's not as hard as you might think to do what I'm doing. It's just that I already had that color, and I already had that color, and I wanted to make sure that my colors were the same colors that I was using. So I showed you how I could actually make those 2 colors by putting the numbers in. But you can also use this color picker right here, cancel, right here, double click, and you could come in here and you could drag around and get the color that you're looking for. And there's your CMYK numbers right there that you can use to build it. But you don't even have to do that, because if you like that color, if that's the color you want, add the CMYK swatch, there's your color. Really not hard to do. So I'm going to hit cancel. Now I'm going to delete those colors because they have no bearing at all on what I'm doing. I'm going to begin to color this. So I happen to know that my number 2 gets this fill color of that right there. So there is my number 2. Now, keep in mind that as I do this, you're going to see what my design looks like in with a white background. And I think after you see, before I apply the black background, you're going to see why I thought from a dramatic standpoint it would be better to have a black background as opposed to a white background. All right, so now I'm going to select this guy right there, and that's going to be in that nice red color. And then the rule is also in that nice red color. So there is my elements, and that element right there, the rules of typography, those rules right there, that gets that nice red color. And there you go. So you see where we're going with this? Let me get this out of here. All right, let's go here. And Rob Carter, you get Rob Carter selected. Rob Carter, he gets red. And Killiam, he gets red. Okay, and I guess I missed Rob Carter. Let me try Rob Carter again. For some reason, I didn't get him. There we go. Okay, now this here, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this goes to black. That just goes to black. There we go. Yes, that's correct. So that's what my poster looks like against a white background. And I'll be honest with you, after I did it, I thought to myself, it's a nice layout, it's a nice design, I like it very much, but it's just not very dramatic. That is why I chose to go with the black background. So what I did was essentially I came in here and I selected all of this type right there, and I applied the color paper to it. Paper is in effect the equivalent of white paper. So I applied paper to that, and then if I go to my layers panel and if I unlock or unhide my background layer, there is my finished design. That is my finished poster design. There it is. I think it looks really good, and I believe that, you know, this is the kind of thing that you should be looking to do. Something really nice, something very interesting, something different. So there it is. Now, before I go in, I got a little bit, I got about a half hour to go. But before I go in and do the same thing in Illustrator again, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to save this so that you can submit it to me. So I'm going to go to the File menu. First, I'm going to go Save. And I'm going to call this Bill, B-I-L-L, Poster, O-S-T-E-R, Bill Poster, and it's in week 4, and I'm going to hit Save. There we go. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go to the File menu and go Export. And it's going to go into week 4, Bill Poster. Now, of course, you're going to change the name. The name that you're going to use is DES-113 assignment. Why has it got 114? This is not 114. That looks like a mistake. This is 113, isn't it? Yeah, that's a mistake. So I don't ignore that. Hit cancel. Let me go back here. Yeah, it throws me off. All right, I'm done with this. I'm not done with it, but let me put it away. This is 114. Okay, so it's 113 assignment for first and last name. All right, but that's what you're going to do. I'm just going to go File, Save Mine, export as Bill Poster, and hit Save. And export all pages. Well, there's only one page, so you can leave that alone. Quality is high. If you want, you could go medium on it. Okay, baseline, leave that alone. Resolution 150 is fine. Color space, RGB is fine, and hit export. Okay, so really that's all you have to do. All pages, medium, 150. Color space, leave it for RGB, that's perfectly fine, and then hit export. And now you've created your PDF for submission. And if you go into my DES-113 typography week 4, there should be a PDF in there. Where are you at? Where did you go? Where are you? Where did it go? It disappeared on me. Let me try it again. Why did that happen? Let's go File, Save, Export. Do it again. Where did it go? Week 4. It's there. Why did it? Bill Poster. Oh, JPEG. That's what it is. I'm sorry. That's why. PDF print. PDF print. That's the first thing. PDF print. Bill Poster. Hit Save. And then, of course, this is going to be page 1. You can just leave all this alone. You have to worry about it. Export it. Make sure that you have your name. And then, of course, there it is. There's your PDF. Let's go View, Fit, Page, and Window. There's your PDF. Now, I have all of my printer's marks on there. If it comes with the printer's marks, I don't care. It's okay. If they don't come without if they come without the printer's marks, that's okay too. Don't worry about that. Perfectly fine. There it is. Now, what I'm going to do is let me close this, and let's go back in and let's go File, Export again. Now, remember, the second thing that you have to do is you have to export a JPEG file to put up on Behance. So let me cancel. I'm in Adobe InDesign. If you do it in InDesign, you're going to go to the File menu, and you're going to go to Export, and you're going to change it from Adobe PDF Print to JPEG. So now you've got a JPEG. Again, I'm calling this Bill Poster, and I'm going to hit Save. It already exists because that's what I made before. Don't worry about it. Yours won't do this probably. Mine did because I already did it. It's right there. And I'm going to hit Yes. And it's going to go through all this. Quality medium, 150. It can probably shave this down to 72. That would be fine. And then color space RGB and export it. Okay? And now watch when I go into my 113, week 4. Right here is my Bill Poster. I'd click on it. There is your submission. That's what you're going to send to me for grading. That's what you'll send to me. Now take a look at the type. See how the type looks really cool? You know? And I mean, the whole idea is that I'm playing around with the idea of using too many different fonts. I've used completely, every font that I've used on here is almost different. The only one that's, I think, the same are these 2 call-outs. Everything else is a different font. But it still looks great. And that's because I'm an experienced designer and I know how to approach utilizing all the different fonts. And I'm playing around with, I'm sort of tongue-in-cheeking the rule number 2, which is not to use so many different fonts, okay? So that's the way I handled it. All right, so that's that. And then finally, if I get this thing to shut down, there we go. There's my JPEG. Where are you at? Bill Poster, right there. There's your JPEG that's going to be put into Behance. So that is how you do this assignment. You upload this JPEG. Right there is the JPEG. See, it's a JPEG file. That's what you're going to upload into Behance. All right, now I have about 20 minutes. So let's try to recreate this in Adobe Illustrator. All right, so first thing, go File, New, and I'm going to create a new file, print 1117. There it is, 1117, and it has a bleed. You see it? So this is basically the same page, only it's in Adobe Illustrator. All right, so let's go to my layers. I have one layer. I'm going to call it background, B-A-C-K-G-R-O-U-N-D, background. I'm going to create a new layer. And this is going to be text, T-E-X-T, text. So now I have a background layer and a text layer. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to default black and white this, and I'm going to change it until I get the black. And this isn't true black. I'm going to make it true black by dragging it way down into the corner there and hit OK. And now that's true black. And I'm just going to come over here and make sure that I'm on the background layer. And I'm going to create another shape that covers the entire page and goes all the way to my bleed lines, right like that. Okay? And then I'm going to hide that layer and lock that layer. And now I'm ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in here, and in Illustrator, unlike, oh, I got to go to my text layer. Sorry. Make sure you're on the text layer because that layer's locked. On the text layer, I'm going to click and I'm going to place a cursor. You don't have to draw text frames in Adobe Illustrator. That's the major difference between the two. Okay? If you get the type tool and you click and place text, this is what you get. You get that little line right there, and it gives you some text. All right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to take my 19 rules of typography and copy that, and I'm going to paste it into here. If I get this to select. It can be a real pain in the neck to do. I'm going to double click it. There we go. And Control V. There we go. 19 rules of typography, which I'm going to click again, select it all, and I'm going to come up into my character. Let me actually bring my character panel out because I'm going to use the character panel a lot on this. Okay, so now the same thing applies here. I'm really doing the exact same thing that I did before. The only difference is that I'm using my character panel in Adobe Illustrator. So click on this. I'm going to go to my classes, and this is slab serif, I believe, and the 19 rules is Rockwell extra bold. Boom, there it is, Rockwell extra bold. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my, first of all, I'm going to change this from auto to optical, okay? And then I'm going to change the size of it. It's going to be 43. So it's going to be 43. And there, nice and big. All right? Now let's go View, Fit Page, and Window. And again, as I told you, I didn't like the idea of it being on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down towards the bottom. Okay? Bring it down to the bottom, just like that. And I will get this thing positioned properly in a minute. The next thing I'm going to do is get my type tool, click, and I'm going to type in 2. Now the 2, if you remember, is Bernard MT condensed. So once again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to serif. I'm sorry, no, serif, yeah. And it's Bernard, where is you at here? Let's see where you at. Is it, wait a minute, maybe it's in slab serif. Nope. Bernard, where are you at? Sans serif. Let me try it. Let me see if I can get that. There we go. There we go, Bernard M. There it is. There it is. Bernard MT condensed. There it is. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by scaling this a little bit. But the problem is it only scales so far. So I'm going to bring it up to about that size right there. It's going to give me trouble going a lot bigger. So what I'm going to do is the same thing that I did in my other file, which was create outlines. So I'll go up to the type menu and come down to where it says create outlines, and now I have an outline of my 2. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to place that 2 on my bleed line right there. If I go to my file menu, let's go to document setup, you can see that I have bleed established on this of 0.125 as well. So make sure that when you create this 11/17" page that you have bleed. I'm going to hit cancel. If you don't see that red line out there, you can easily go to the file menu, go to document setup, and you can just go to where it says bleed and type in 0.125 inch. Make sure that that is selected, or see, it's not selected now. Make sure it's selected, and it's to make all the settings the same. Okay? But I don't need to do that because I've already done it. So now I've got that sitting on that bleed line. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab that corner, hold the shift key down, and I'm going to start dragging this thing down until it gets way down to about right there. That's probably pretty good. It might actually be a little bit too big, but we'll find out in a minute. And I'm going to walk this thing over until I get it right there. That's good. Right there is where I want it to be. There we have it. So there's my 2. Boom. And there's my 19 rules of typography. And I'm going to go to the View menu, and I'm going to go to Rulers, and I'm going to show the rulers. The reason I'm showing the rulers is because I'm going to start bringing guides out. The guides are going to be part of my gridding. So there's my first guide, and I actually missed my point. So go to the View menu, or go to the View menu and go Guides and unlock the guides. There we go. So now I can move it. Let me get that moved in position properly. There we go. That's it. Now I'm going to click on 19 rules of typography, and I'm going to move it over until it actually lines up right like that. That looks very good. There we go. Okay, so I mean, I think by now you're beginning to see that this is all very basic, very simple, and the only thing that you really have to do is have a plan for how you're going to do this. All right. In InDesign, you're going to be making text frames. In Illustrator, you don't. You just click and type text. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type the word R-U-L-E, rule, okay? And then I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go into this. It's actually serif, sans serif. Yeah, we're in sans serif. Okay, so it's Arial, I think is what it was. I'm using Arial, and it's Arial Black. Yep, that's it, Arial Black. And the size of this, if I'm not, oh, it's optical. First of all, it's optical, which it's already set to optical. That's good. And the size of rule is 51 point. So I'm going to actually make that 51. And then there that is. There's my 51 point rule. Let me sit it up, basically sitting it on the guide right there. And get my type tool again, click, and I'm going to hit the pound sign again, creating that shape, that right there. And then this thing here, the pound sign is Caslon Pro. Now I happen to know that Caslon Pro is a serif font, and I'm going to look for Caslon. Where are you at? There we go, Adobe Caslon Pro. And bold, I think it's, yeah, bold. So it's bold. Okay, and then it's going to be optical, right? And the size of this guy, Adobe Caslon Pro, is 196 point. So 196, there you have it. Nice and big, perfect. Move it down and get it into position. Now, what I probably want to do is I probably want to utilize that guide. Let's try maybe taking that thing and moving that over until it's touching that guide. That's good. And actually, that looks pretty good. Maybe this here could move over just a touch. That's probably good right there. That's probably real good. So again, fit. artboard and window. As you can see, I'm utilizing my gridding, right, which is at this point just a guide, but this is my gridding, and it's helping me to align elements the way I want them to align. This looks very good so far. All right, now what I'm going to do is come over here with my type tool. This time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to first, let me drag a guide out until I get right about there. Okay, so now I have another guide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag out a frame. This is going to be a big frame, right like this, right there. Okay, up, edit, undo. I hit the wrong tool. I want to use the type tool. Sorry. Click in here. I'm going to drag out a guide, just like that. There we go. And this is going to be, I think it's going to be around 20 point. So let's make this thing 20. 20. There we go. And then what I want to do is I want to go into my 19 rules, and I'm going to grab all that copy. Copy. And I'm going to select it and go Control V to paste it. Oh, didn't get it. Hold on. I messed up. Let's try it again. Copy. And try it again. Control V. There we go. Perfect. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this because, again, I have to format this. As it is right now, this is all formatted in Adobe Caslon Pro. So I'm going to select the first two lines. That's the first one right there. And the first paragraph is Baskerville 19/20. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to look for Baskerville. And it's going to be not bold, but Baskerville regular. And it's going to be 19/20. 20. And then if I go to my paragraph panel, once again, I can do the same thing. Space after, space after, space after. And these are different. These are in points. So I'm going to give it 4 points. The other is slightly different measurement. So I've given it 4 points. So now I'm going to select the second paragraph. Paragraph 2 was Arial. Arial. So that's actually a sans serif. So I'm going to come and get the sans serif, and there's Arial. And it's going to be, whoops, I didn't want that at all. I want to go Arial. I want to go regular. Arial regular. There we go. And Arial regular, 16/20. So this is going to be 16/20. Perfect. Over 20, 19/20. There we go. And then what we want is we want space after, and I believe I did 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll do it. And now I got my, see, nice space, nice arrangement, all going real well. Select this guy right here. And the third paragraph is Clarendon. And Clarendon is also, let me see if I can type it in. C-L-A-R. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. This is in sans serif. I got to go to serif. There we go. Now let's go in and let's try Clarendon. C-L-A-R. Clarendon, there, Clarendon Tea Light. That's it, right there. That's it, right there. And Clarendon was 15/20, so I'm going to take that and set this to 15. And then it's going to be over 18, 19, 20. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Killiam. And if I'm not mistaken, Killiam was in sans serif. And it was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I used, no, I didn't need slab serif. I mean sans serif. There we go. It was actually, I think, Helvetica. Arial? Yeah, Arial. That's what I meant. Arial Black. There you go. All right. And then again, instead of doing the alignment, I could do the alignment. That would send it over to there. It's not what I wanted to do. I hit the Tab key, go to the Type menu, and go, oh, wait a minute. In Illustrator, type tabs in here. Where are you? Type tabs. There you go. Type tab. And I'm going to use the same tab stop, left adjust, justified. And then I'm going to click and hold that, and I'm just going to walk it over to about there. And now just slowly bring it over a little bit more, and a little tiny bit more. And that's probably pretty good right there. And now let me close this for the moment. And let's move on and get this done because I still have enough time to finish this for you. And then I'm going to come down here, back right here to the last piece, which is this. I'm going to drag it and create a frame, create another text frame right here. This time the text is going to change, the color of the text is going to change to white. All right, and I'm going to remove the stroke. So it's going to be just a white, the text is going to be white in there. I made it white to make it easier for us to see. Go in here and go to my 19 rules, and I'm going to get Rob Carter statement. I'm going to drag that and copy that and come in here and Control V. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. I love it. Select this. Actually, I got an extra space there. Let me delete that. There we go. I'm going to select this. And this quote here is, I think it's Chaparral Pro, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a serif. Let's see, is it slab serif? Let me see, slab serif. Chaparral Pro, yeah, slab serif. And I see if it's bold, regular. There we go. And then what it is, so it's Chaparral Pro regular, and it's 28/30, I believe. So we're going to come in here and we'll make that 28. 28, and this is going to be 30, and that's going to look like that. 30. There we go. And then Rob Carter, again, I'm not going to go to the paragraph and whoops, I'm not going to go to the paragraph and flush it. It's not what I want. I'm going to go to the window menu and go to type and go to tabs, and I'm going to use my left justified tab, and I'm going to click not on the ruler but above the ruler, like that, right above it. And then I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it over until it's not moving. What happened? How come that's not moving? Hold on, delete, enter, tab. There we go. All right, let's try it again. I might have maybe not tabbed it. That's probably, yeah, there it is. That's why I didn't tab it. All right, so I'll move it over. There we go. I forgot to tab it. Make sure you tab it before you did it, because that's why it didn't work for me. So I forgot to tab it. I'm busy talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing. There, that's it. That's it. That looks good. And Rob Carter, I do think I want to just backspace. Oh. There we go. I want to hit there. That's what I want. All right, and this is what now? This is Arial Black, which, what was the citations? Arial Black, 16/17. Well, actually, that's 16. There we go. And now let's go to the other one. Let's go up to the other one. And this one here is Arial Black. And let's go to 16 as well. There we go. Now I'm going to baseline this up a little bit. That's probably good right there. Let's go to the other one down here and let's take a look at that one. And yeah, I guess I could baseline that up just a little bit. Make it a little bit tighter. That's good. Let's go to the view menu and let's go fit artboard and window. Now there it is. I basically laid this whole thing out almost exactly. Let's go to the view menu and let's go to guides and let's hide the guides. There it is. It's basically the same thing. Now this thing probably should move down just a little tiny bit because there's plenty of space there, and that looks a lot better. So there it is. We're basically done. Now what I need to do is I need to color this in exactly the same way that I colored the other one. I have this background here, and if I bring the background forward, there's the background. We have the same problem. So what I need to do is I need to come in here, and I got all these colors. When you open up Illustrator, Illustrator gives you a bunch of colors. So the first thing that I like to do when I go to my swatches panel, and by the way, once again, you get the swatches panel window and go down to swatches right there. All right, but I already got it open, so I'm not going to bother. Open this up. You got all these swatches in here. You don't want them. So if you go to this drop-down menu, you can go to select all unused and see how they all highlight. Then if you hit the garbage can, you're going to delete all of them, and then they're all gone. And then I'm going to click on that and delete that. Yes. Okay, so I can do the same thing. I can come in here and I can double click on this guy right here, and there's my colors right there. And if I wanted to, I could come in here and I could choose for C, I could type in 10, And then I move to the next one, and you can see the colors changing. So 10, and then the M is 100. And that's only because I have these numbers, okay? And then CMY is 58. And then the K is 1. There, and hit OK. And now, new swatch. There it is right there. Process color, global, RGB. I'm going to change it to CMYK, but it doesn't matter. Hit OK, and there's my color. All right. Now I do the same thing. I could do the same thing again for my color. If I wanted to, you know, I can drag around. I can find my color. You know, if I wanted to make that orange, I could drag around until I got the orange that I'm looking for. I need something a little redder maybe. See what I mean? I could find it if I fool around with it. But I already got the numbers. So what I'm saying to you is that, you know, in this particular case, I'm just showing you how I recreate that color. So to get this color I'm looking for right now, the cyan is 0. The magenta is 36. And the yellow is 79. 79. And the K is 1. Now, also, since I got my color here, see where it says color swatches? After I get my color the way I want it, I can click on that, and you can see it automatically adds it to the color swatches. Hit OK. And now I can just, actually, it didn't bring it in my color swatch. Why didn't it do that? Cancel. Let's go to Window, Color. Where are we at here? Color. Huh. Well, let me come back in here and let me do it again. All right, so it's 0. I don't know why I didn't put it in the color swatches. 36. And that is 79. And hit OK. There we go. And now, new swatch. And CMYK and hit OK. There we go. All right, now all I got to do, color my elements. Click on this and make sure your fill is forward. And that gets the yellow. And then this guy right here, that gets the red. And that gets the red. And that gets the red. Mycelium. There we go. That gets the red. Rob Carter. That gets the red. This goes to black. Right like that. And this goes to, whoops. Let me make sure I get this. There we go. That goes to white. And now, all I have to do is hide this, go to my layers, and bingo, look at that. There it is. I've actually done the exact same thing in Adobe Illustrator. So, I mean, it's really not difficult. The biggest challenge is coming up with an idea. Oh, one small detail I noticed right here is in my type, I got hyphens. I hate hyphens. They drive me nuts. I don't like hyphens. So I'm selecting this. I'm going to go to the paragraph panel. And see where it says hyphenate? I deselect hyphenate, and hyphenation goes away because I don't like hyphens. I like mine to be unhyphened. And for some reason, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, I need a little bit more space after here. So let me go to my paragraph and let's go to space after and give it 6, maybe 7. Yeah, let me click on this one too. 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. That's probably a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so view, fit, artboard, and window. Again, because I'm basically the instructor and I've done this kind of thing many, many times before, my goal here was to kind of see how far I could push this rule. So in my design, what I tried to do, instead of taking the rule literally, which is be mindful not to use too many different typefaces at any one time, I deliberately went out of the way to see how many different typefaces I could put into my piece and still make something that looks really good. Oh, and by the way, I noticed again, I got another issue down here. Same nonsense, all right? You go to paragraph panel and get rid of that hyphen. I don't want the hyphen. Yeah, I don't like hyphens. There we go. Now we're in business. Okay, so there you go. That's how you do the same project in Adobe Illustrator and in Adobe InDesign. They basically are the same thing. If you do it in Illustrator, or you can go in here and you can go export as, and you could save it as, we're going to call this Illustrator, Illustrator. And you're going to export it as a JPEG first, so that you can put that in Behance, and it's going to go in the week 4 folder, export. And then, of course, you just leave the settings the way you have them here, RGB, quality 10, and hit OK. And then file, save as. And in here, you're going to call this Illustrator, Illustrator. And this is going to be changed to a PDF, right? Hit save. And it comes up and leave the default settings for submission to me. Now, if I come in here and go to my DES-113, week 4, I'm going to come in here to my, where's it? Illustrator. Look at, there's my Illustrator area. Go, look at that. Fit page and window. Boom, there's my poster. Looks beautiful. Looks just like what it looks like in InDesign. And it was fast. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Illustrator, here's my JPEG to go into Behance. Okay, so that's it for the night. I hope you found this helpful. Enjoy doing this project. I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you do as well. Just remember, tomorrow night I will be here for multi-session. If you need any help, don't hesitate. Come on in. I want to help you. I'd like to see you pass. The only way I'm going to be able to see you pass is if you come and work with me. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for watching.